Venice, the city that floats on water. Hello and welcome. Today, we have a story about a very special place. It is a city built on water. The streets are not for cars, they are for boats. The name of this city is Venice. It is a city of bridges, of old buildings, and of many secrets. Before we start the story, I have a question for you. What is a beautiful city or place in your country? Please tell me its name in the comments below. I would love to read about it. Now, let us begin our story. In the heart of Venice, there was a small quiet street. This street was not famous. Big groups of people did not walk here. The street was narrow, and the buildings were old and full of color. On this street, there was a small shop. The shop had a wooden door and one large window. Inside this shop lived a man named Marco. Marco was not a young man, but he was not old. He had kind eyes and strong hands. His hair was dark, like the water in the canals at night. Marco had a special job. He was a mask maker. His father was a mask maker, and his grandfather was a mask maker too. The shop was his family shop. It was very old. The smell inside was of wood, paint, and paper. Every morning, Marco woke up when the sun started to light the sky. His small room was above his shop. He could hear the soft sound of water from his window. He would get out of bed, wash his face, and put on his simple clothes. Then, he would go downstairs to his small kitchen. He made coffee and ate a piece of bread. He did the same thing every morning. His life was simple and quiet. After his breakfast, he would open his shop. He would take the wooden sign from inside and hang it on the door. The sign said, "Masks by Marco." The letters were old and faded. He would clean the window and arrange the masks inside. Each mask was different. Some were happy, with big smiles and bright colors. Some were sad, with tears painted under their eyes. Some masks were simple, with only one color. Others had long noses or strange shapes. Marco made every mask with his hands. Each one was a piece of his heart, but Marco was worried. His shop was not busy. Fewer people came to his small street. More people went to the big famous squares. In those places, there were big shops. Those shops sold masks too, but their masks were different. They were made by machines in a factory. They were all the same. They were bright and new, but they did not have a story. Marco's masks had stories. He knew the story of every mask in his shop. He worried about money. He needed money for food, for rent, and for the materials to make his masks. Sometimes he would sit in his shop for the whole day, and no one would come inside. He would work on a new mask, trying not to think about his empty pockets. He loved his work. He did not want to do anything else. But love for his work did not pay for bread. He felt a sadness growing in his chest, a quiet fear for his small old shop. One sunny afternoon, a young woman arrived in Venice. Her name was Elena. She came from a small town far away. Her town had big green fields and wide roads for cars. It did not have canals or gondolas. For Elena, Venice was like a dream. She had one big suitcase and a long black case for her violin. She was a musician. Music was her life. She found a small room to rent near the edge of the city. It was not a fancy place, but it was clean and had a window that looked over a small canal. She was excited to be in Venice. She wanted to find inspiration for her music. She believed the beauty of the city would help her write new songs. For the first few days, Elena walked everywhere. She walked over big famous bridges and small hidden ones. She saw the big squares, full of people and pigeons. She saw the gondolas moving slowly on the green water. The city was beautiful, more beautiful than any picture she had ever seen. But it was also a lonely place. She did not know anyone. Everyone seemed to be moving, going somewhere. She would sit by a canal, watch the boats, and feel very small and alone. She tried to play her violin in her room, but the music that came out was sad. It was the sound of her own loneliness. She wanted to write happy music, music that sounded like the sun on the water, but her heart felt heavy. She started to think that maybe coming to Venice was a mistake. One day, Elena decided to get lost. She put her map away and just walked. She turned down small streets, away from the crowds. The sounds of the city changed. It was quieter here. She could hear the water touching the sides of the buildings. She could hear the sound of people talking inside their homes. It felt more real. She walked for a long time. The sun was warm on her face. Then she found a very small street. It was quiet and peaceful. And there, she saw a small shop. The shop sign was old. "Masks by Marco," it said. She looked in the window. The masks were amazing. They were not like the machine-made masks in the big shops. Each one was different. They had feelings. She could see happiness, sadness, and mystery in them. She looked through the glass and saw a man inside. He was sitting at a wooden table, working. He was holding a brush and painting a mask with a very thin red line. He was very focused. His hands moved slowly and with great care. Elena stood there and watched him for a long time. She felt something strange. She felt like she was looking at a person who truly loved his work. It made her think about her own music. Did she love her music with that same quiet passion? Marco felt someone was watching him. He looked up from his work. He saw a young woman standing outside his window. She had big, curious eyes and long, dark hair. She was holding a violin case. Their eyes met for just a second. Elena felt shy and quickly looked away. She started to walk away from the shop. Marco watched her go. It was strange. Not many people stopped to look at his shop for so long. He felt a small bit of hope. Maybe she would come back. He went back to his work, but his thoughts were not on the mask anymore. He thought about the girl with the violin. The next day, Elena walked through the city again. She did not plan to go back to the small street, but her feet seemed to remember the way. Soon, she was standing in front of Marco's shop again. Today, she was a little braver. She took a deep breath and pushed the old wooden door. A small bell rang above her head. The shop was small and filled with masks. They were on shelves, on the walls, everywhere. It was like a room full of faces, a room full of silent stories. Marco was at his table, sanding a new white mask to make it smooth. He looked up when the bell rang. He saw it was the same young woman from yesterday. "Hello," he said. His voice was soft and a little rough, like he did not use it very often. "Hello," Elena said back. She was a little nervous. "Your masks are very beautiful." A small smile appeared on Marco's face. It was a real smile, and it made his kind eyes look even kinder. "Thank you," he said. He put down the mask he was working on. "Please, look around." Elena walked slowly around the small shop. She looked at each mask carefully. She touched one with a long nose. It felt smooth and solid. She saw one decorated with gold paint and small simple feathers. "How do you make them?" she asked. Marco was happy to talk about his work. He explained the whole process in simple words. He told her how he used special paper and glue to create the shape. He showed her the clay models of faces that he used. He explained that he had to wait for the mask to dry completely. This took many days. Then, he would paint them. Each one tells a story, he said, picking up a simple white mask with a single black tear under one eye. This one is about a sad clown. He makes everyone laugh, but inside, he is crying. Then he picked up another mask, one with bright colors and a wide smile. This one is for the carnival. It is a time for fun and parties. You can be anyone you want behind a mask. Elena listened to every word. She saw the love he had for his craft. It was not just a job for him. It was his life. She told him that she was a musician, that she played the violin. She told him she came to Venice to find inspiration. But the city is so big, she said softly, and I feel very small. Marco understood. He had lived in Venice his whole life, but sometimes even he felt small in the great old city. Venice has two faces, he said. There is the face for the visitors. It is loud and busy. And there is the real face. It is quiet and secret. You must get lost to find it. They talked for a long time. It was easy to talk to Marco. He was a good listener. When Elena left the shop that day, her heart felt a little lighter. She had made a friend. Elena started to visit Marco's shop every day. Sometimes she would just sit quietly and watch him work. She loved the way his hands moved, with so much skill and patience. He would mix colors, creating the perfect shade of blue. Like the Venice sky in the morning, he would paint tiny, detailed lines that brought the masks to life. Marco enjoyed her company. His shop was not so lonely anymore. He would tell her stories about the city, stories his grandfather had told him. He told her about the great floods, when the water came into the shops and homes. He told her about the famous festivals from long ago. One afternoon, Marco said, "Come, I will show you something." He closed his shop a little early. He led Elena through a maze of narrow streets. They walked away from the center of the city. They crossed small bridges over quiet canals. The water in these canals was clear. They saw an old woman lowering a basket from her window to get her mail from the postman in his boat. They saw children playing with a ball in a small hidden square. Marco took her to a small park. It was a secret garden, hidden behind a high wall. Inside, there were trees and flowers. The air smelled sweet. It was so quiet. They sat on a stone bench. For the first time since she arrived, Elena felt a sense of peace. This was the Venice Marco had talked about, the real Venice. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "The city has many secrets," Marco said. "You just need to be quiet to find them." As they walked back, the sun began to set. The sky turned pink and orange. The light reflected on the water, making it look like a painting. Elena felt a new feeling inside her. It was not sadness. It was not loneliness. It was a warm, gentle feeling. It was inspiration. That evening, back in her small room, Elena took out her violin. She thought about Marco and his masks. She thought about the secret garden and the quiet canals. She thought about the colors of the sunset on the water. She started to play. The music was different this time. It was not sad. It was soft and hopeful. It was a melody that was both happy and a little bit thoughtful. It was the sound of Venice's secret heart. She played for hours, and for the first time, She felt like she was not alone. The city was with her, in her music. The next day, Elena brought her violin to Marco's shop. "I want to play something for you," she said. She stood just outside the open door of his shop and began to play her new song. The music floated out into the small street. It was a beautiful sound. It was new, but it also sounded old, like it had always been a part of the city. A few people who were walking by stopped to listen. An old man leaned out of his window from the apartment above. A woman with a shopping bag stood on the small bridge nearby. They all listened to Elena's music. Marco stood in his doorway, watching and listening. He saw the look on people's faces. The music was touching them, and it was coming from his shop. When Elena finished, there was a moment of silence, and then the small group of people clapped. Elena's face turned red, but she was smiling a real, happy smile. After that, Elena started to play her violin outside Marco's shop every afternoon. It became a small event. People started to come to the quiet street just to hear her play. They were not big crowds, just a few people at a time, but they were all listening, and something wonderful began to happen. While people were listening to the music, they would look into Marco's shop window. They would see the amazing masks. The music made them curious, so they would come inside. An old couple bought a happy, smiling mask for their grandchild. A young man bought a mysterious-looking mask for a party. A woman from another country bought a small, delicate mask to put on her wall at home. For the first time in a long, long time, Marco's shop was busy. He was selling masks every day. He was not making a lot of money, but it was enough. It was enough to buy food, pay his rent, and buy the best paints for his new masks. The worry in his heart began to disappear. It was replaced by a feeling of gratitude. Marco and Elena became a team. His art and her music, together, brought life back to the small shop on the quiet street. They would eat lunch together, simple meals of bread, cheese, and fruit. They would talk about their dreams. Marco dreamed of keeping his family shop alive. Elena dreamed of writing music that would make people feel something. Music that would tell a story. They were helping each other make their dreams come true. Their friendship grew stronger every day. It was a quiet and comfortable friendship. They did not need to talk all the time. Sometimes they would just sit in silence. He would work on his masks, and she would write new music in her notebook. The silence was not empty. It was full of understanding and respect. One evening, after they had closed the shop, they walked to the edge of the water and watched the last gondolas of the day go by. The sun was gone, and the lights of the city were starting to turn on, reflecting in the dark water. "Thank you, Elena," Marco said softly. "You saved my shop." Elena shook her head. "No, Marco," she replied. "We saved it together. And you helped me find my music again. You helped me find my home." In that moment, they both knew they had found something special in Venice. They had found more than just a beautiful city. They had found a friend, and they had found a place where their art and their hearts could be happy. For many weeks, life was good for Marco and Elena. The sun shone, Elena's music filled the small street, and Marco's shop had customers every day. He had enough money to buy better materials. He bought some beautiful, soft feathers and some real gold leaf to decorate his masks. He felt happy when he worked. He was creating the best masks of his life. But the city of Venice was always changing. One morning, Marco saw some men working on a shop at the other end of his street. It was a bigger shop. one that had been empty for a long time. They were painting it bright white and putting up a big shiny sign. A few days later, the new shop opened. The sign said, "Venice Souvenirs, best price." A large crowd of people went inside. Marco walked down the street to look. The shop was full of things for tourists. T-shirts, small models of gondolas, and masks. Marco's heart sank. He looked at the masks in the new shop. They were very bright and shiny, but they were all exactly the same. They had no personality. They were made of thin, cheap plastic. On the backs, a small sticker said, "Made in a factory far away." The worst part was the price. They were selling the masks for very, very little money. Soon things began to change for Marco. The tourists who came to hear Elena's music would often stop at the new shop first. They would buy a cheap mask there. By the time they reached Marco's shop, they already had a souvenir. They would look in his window and say, "Oh, these are beautiful, but they are more expensive." They did not understand the difference. They did not understand that Marco's masks were art, made with time and love. Day by day, Marco sold fewer masks. The small amount of money he was making started to disappear again. The old worry came back, colder and heavier than before. He tried to stay positive. He told himself that his masks were better, that people would see the quality, but it was difficult. The new shop was big and loud. It was like a bright light that made his small, quiet shop hard to see. Elena saw the sadness return to Marco's eyes. She saw him sitting at his desk, staring at a half-finished mask, his hands still. The shop was quiet again. Even when she played her music, she played louder, more beautiful songs, hoping to attract more people. But it was not enough. She felt terrible. She felt like it was her fault. Her music had brought people to the street, but it had also brought the big new shop. She tried to talk to Marco about it. "Don't worry, Marco," she said one afternoon. "People will see that your work is special." Marco looked at her, and his smile was tired. "Maybe, Elena, but special does not pay the rent. People want what is cheap and easy. My work is slow and difficult. Maybe there is no place for that anymore." His words made Elena's heart ache. She could not accept it. She refused to believe that something so beautiful and real could be replaced by something cheap and fake. She had to do something. But what? She was just one musician. The new shop was a business. She could not fight a business. That night, Elena could not sleep. She sat by her window, looking at the dark water of the canal. She thought about her own journey. She had come to Venice feeling lost, and the city, through Marco, had helped her find her way. Now, Marco was the one who was lost, and she had to help him. An idea began to form in her mind. It was a small idea, a quiet idea, just like Marco's shop. It was about showing people the story behind the masks. If people understood the work, the time, and the love that went into each mask, maybe they would understand why they were special. Maybe they would understand that they were not just buying an object, but a piece of Venice itself. She wasn't sure if it would work, but she knew she had to try. For her friend, and for the beautiful quiet art that she had grown to love. The next morning, Elena went to Marco's shop with a new energy. "Marco," she said, her eyes bright with purpose, "we are not going to give up. We are going to show everyone why your masks are different." Marco looked at her, a little confused. "How, Elena?" "I cannot make my prices lower. The materials cost money. My time costs money. "It's not about the price," she said. "It's about the story. People don't know the story. We have to show them." Elena's plan was simple. She asked Marco to move his workbench. He usually worked in the back of the shop, where it was quiet. Elena asked him to move his small table and his chair right next to the big front window, where everyone could see him. "But people will watch me," Marco said. He was a private person. The idea of working in front of everyone made him nervous. "Let them watch," Elena insisted. "Let them see the magic. Let them see how a simple piece of paper becomes a work of art." Marco trusted Elena. So, with some doubt, he moved his table, his paints, his brushes, and his tools to the front of the shop. Then, Elena did something different. Instead of standing outside the shop to play her violin, she brought a small stool and sat just inside the doorway. Now, when she played, the music filled the shop and spilled out into the street. It was like an invitation. The first day, they were both very nervous. Marco felt strange with people looking at him as he worked. Elena's hands trembled a little as she held her violin. But then, she started to play. She played a slow, careful song. The notes were like the slow, careful movements of Marco's hands. A few people stopped. They were drawn by the music. Then they saw Marco through the window. He was not just a shopkeeper. He was an artist at work. They watched as he carefully placed a small piece of gold leaf onto a mask. They saw him mix blue and white paint to create the color of the sky. They saw the focus in his eyes. A small family came to the doorway, listening to the music. The little girl pointed at Marco. "Look, Mommy," she said. "He's making a face." The mother smiled and looked at the masks on the wall. She looked at the cheap plastic mask she had bought from the other shop, which was already in her bag. Then she looked back at Marco's work. She saw the difference. Elena started to talk between her songs. Her voice was soft. "Every mask in this shop is made right here," she would say to the people who gathered. "Each one takes many days. Marco's family has been making masks on this street for over 100 years. This is not just a souvenir. It is a piece of real Venice." Slowly, things started to change again. People would listen to the music and watch Marco work. They would stay for a long time. Then they would come into the shop. They would ask Marco questions. "How long did it take to make this one? What does this one mean?" Marco, who was usually quiet, found himself talking about his work. He told them the stories of the masks. He explained the history. He showed them the difference between his work and the factory-made masks. His passion for his art was clear in his voice. People began to buy his masks again. Not just one or two a day, but many. A woman said, "I want to buy something real to remember my trip. Something with a soul." She bought a beautiful mask with a sad smile. A young couple bought 2 simple masks to wear at a party back home. They said they would tell their friends the story of the old mask maker and the young musician. One day, the city announced a small local festival. It was a celebration of Venetian traditions and crafts. All the local artists were invited to show their work in the main square. There was going to be a competition for the best handmade craft. Elena saw the notice and ran to the shop. "Marco, you have to enter. You can enter a mask into the competition." Marco was hesitant. "I don't know," he said. "There are many great artists in Venice. My work is small. Your work is beautiful," Elena insisted. "And this is our chance. A chance for everyone in the city to see the difference between real art and the cheap things in the new shop. Her belief in him gave him courage. He agreed. "Okay," he said with a slow nod. "I will do it. I will make a special mask. The best mask I have ever made." For the next week, Marco worked like never before. He decided to create a mask that represented the city of Venice itself. He worked late into the night, long after Elena had gone home. The light in his small shop was the only light on in the quiet street. He shaped the mask to be strong. Like the old buildings of the city, he painted it with the deep greens and blues of the canal water. He used his real gold leaf to create thin lines, like the reflections of sunlight on the waves. On one side of the mask, he painted a smiling sun, representing the beauty and life of the city. On the other side, he painted a sad silver moon, representing the city's age and its quiet, mysterious secrets. It was a mask of two faces, just like the city Marco loved. It was his masterpiece. The day of the festival arrived. The main square was full of people and music. Artists had set up small tables to show their work. There was beautiful glass, delicate lace, and handmade leather goods. Marco set up his small table. He placed his special mask in the center, on a piece of dark cloth. Elena stood with him. She was too nervous to play her violin. She just watched as people walked by. The owner of the big souvenir shop was there too. He had a big fancy table full of his bright plastic masks. He laughed when he saw Marco's single mask. The judges, a group of old artists and city leaders, walked around looking at all the crafts. They spent a long time at each table. When they came to Marco's table, they stopped. They picked up the Venice mask. They looked at it from every angle. They touched the smooth surface. They saw the detail in the painting. They did not say anything. They just nodded to each other and moved on. Hours passed. It was a long, anxious wait. Finally, it was time to announce the winner. A man stood on a small stage and spoke into a microphone. He announced the third place winner, a glass blower. He announced the second place winner, a lace maker. Marco's heart was beating fast. He was sure he had not won. He started to pack up his things. And the first prize, the man on the stage said loudly, "For a work that shows the true spirit and soul of Venice, goes to Marco, the mask maker." Marco stopped. He could not believe what he had heard. Elena let out a happy cry and hugged him. Everyone clapped. People came to his table to see the winning mask. They crowded around, telling him how beautiful it was. The owner of the big souvenir shop stood at his table, alone. No one was looking at his cheap masks anymore. Marco walked onto the stage to receive his prize. It was a blue ribbon and an envelope with some money. But the real prize was the look on people's faces. It was the respect in their eyes. He held up his mask for everyone to see. That day, everything changed for Marco. His small shop became famous, not just with tourists, but with the people of Venice too. They were proud of their local artist. They would bring their friends and family to his shop and say, "This is the man who makes the best masks in all of Venice." He had to hire an assistant to help him. He never had to worry about paying the rent again. But he did not change. He still worked at his table by the window. He still made every mask with his own two hands, with patience and with love. And Elena found her success too. A famous cafe in the city asked her to play her music for their guests every evening. She would play her songs about Venice, songs full of hope and beauty. her music became known throughout the city. She was no longer a lonely girl in a big city. She was a part of its music, a part of its soul. Marco and Elena remained the best of friends. Even though they were both busy, they still made time for each other. Every evening, after Marco closed his shop, and before Elena went to play at the cafe, they would meet. They would sit on their favorite bench by the secret garden, or they would walk along the canals as the sun set. They would talk about their day, about their work, about their dreams. They had helped each other find their way. The mask maker and the musician. Together, they had brought a little bit of magic back to their small corner of the floating city. And so, in the heart of Venice, on a small quiet street, a light stayed on, late into the night. It was the light from a small shop, where an artist was creating stories with paper and paint. And from not too far away, the beautiful sound of a violin could be heard, its music floating over the dark water, a sweet melody in the city that floats on water. Thank you for listening to the story. If you liked it, please subscribe to our channel for more easy English stories. See you in the next video.